Hey everyone, this is Marketplace Tech Bytes. It is our weekly roundup of some of the big headlines in tech and maybe some you missed. I'm Meghan McCarty Carino. This week, Nvidia reported strong quarterly earnings despite a slight slowdown in data center revenue. OpenAI is updating its chatbot to better respond to mental health concerns. And Spotify has added direct messaging to the music streaming platform. Here to talk about all that is our regular contributor, Burks at Collab Capital. Hey, Jewel.
Hey, Meghan. How are you?
I'm good. It's so good to see you. It's been a minute.
Yes.
Well, we got to kick things off like we always do with our bite of the week. This is a number that gives us a little insight into the week in tech. Jewel, what number do we need to know this week?
So we need to know 46.7 billion. And that is Nvidia's Q2 revenue.
Yeah, nothing to sneeze at. This week we got, kind of one of the quarterly holidays of the year. The chipmaker Nvidia reported earnings. And this has sort of become a major event on Wall Street and throughout the business world because, people like to watch for signs of strength in the AI boom. And I would say for the most part, Nvidia did not disappoint this time around. The most valuable company in the world at this point. It is still seeing strong demand for its graphics processing units that power pretty much all of the AI, models and deployment. So now when we're talking about growth rates here, I think we have to kind of put it into perspective that this company has seen just atomically explosive growth over recent years. So when we're saying slightly slower growth in some areas like data center revenues, well, there's still really big revenues and a lot of growth. So Jewel, how have the markets been digesting this?
Well, it's interesting because the markets have been slightly down from this earnings report, even though, to your point, they're still posting huge numbers and remarkable growth when you think about how big those numbers are. And they actually beat their numbers or beat what they were expecting. But there was a slight miss on the data center revenue, which was just a few hundred million off from where they thought it would be at 41.1 billion. A little lower than where it was expected to be. But again, this is still record numbers. It still represents over 56% year over year growth. So it's interesting that, the street responded in the way that it did, given that these are still kind of astronomical numbers.
I think, a part of the context is that these earnings are coming at a moment when we've been seeing just some slight touches of skittishness among investors. There was that MIT study that made the rounds last week showing 95% of corporate AI investments aren't paying off. We heard from OpenAI CEO Sam Altman recently. Essentially, there could be some bubble dynamics at play in the industry. It came after the new GPT-5 was released. Kind of a tepid reception, maybe some worries that AI progress is slowing down. What are you hearing in the VC space?
I think that there's still a huge amount of excitement around AI, but to your point, people are being a little bit more cautious in terms of how they're investing in the VC space. Corporations are thinking a little bit more deeply in terms of what investments they're making as well and what's actually going to stick, what's going to actually provide value. So I do think that, people were very excited maybe last year, a few quarters ago, and as they're taking on these new solutions, testing them out, using them, and trying to understand where the value is actually going to come from, they're probably slowing down their adoption just a bit.
One of the kind of big question marks for Nvidia in its guidance was about sales of its chips in China. It recorded no revenue there in this quarter. The company has struck this deal with the Trump administration to pay a 15% cut of sales of its lower level H20 chips in China. That hasn't really materialized yet. I mean, how much is all this kind of uncertainty in the trade war weighing on the tech sector?
I think it's weighing quite a bit. It was certainly notable through the earnings report that Nvidia, to your point, did not include any H20 chip sales to China in its outlook, and actually took that out of the forward-looking forecast as well. So I think from their standpoint, it's definitely making an impact in terms of how they're forecasting future revenue. And also, the broader context is that all of the sort of unrest in terms of the geopolitical space is having an impact on not just Nvidia, but the tech industry and industries more broadly. So certainly something that everyone is watching.
All right, now we want to talk about some changes that OpenAI says it's making to ChatGPT in response to growing concerns about how its products can sort of exacerbate mental health distress. These changes come after a number of reports of users spiraling into what's now being called AI psychosis after these kind of lengthy conversations with ChatGPT that, where the chatbot, as chatbots tend to do, kind of affirm thinking that might be, delusional or lead to self-harm. OpenAI was recently sued by a family who said their teenager had died by suicide after conversations like this, where they say the chatbot kind of actively helped him explore suicide methods. Jewel, how is the company responding to these concerns right now?
Well, OpenAI put out a blog post this week, really talking about how they're thinking about some of these concerns and focusing on how they want to prioritize human well-being through the use of the product, and how they're building in new safety mechanisms, really doing things like prompting users to take breaks if they have been engaging with the chat for too long, and also layering in ways in which real world resources can come into play if they notice conversations going in a certain direction. So those are some of the things they're doing to really curtail some of the problems that we've seen. And the question remains: is that going to be enough to really fully impact users and help make sure that we don't see more circumstances like the case that you brought up?
Right. OpenAI has had these kinds of guardrails that are supposed to refer users to help in instances like the case that I mentioned. But the company says that these guardrails kind of break down often in longer conversations, and that they're trying to add stronger guardrails that recognize earlier signals of distress. They gave an example in the blog post of if a user says, they're planning to drive day and night after not sleeping for 2 days because they feel invincible, that might be something that would trigger some kind of, referral to help, or a response that would ground in reality rather than constantly affirming. And this has been kind of a tension for ChatGPT. We've talked a lot about its kind of tendency to be sycophantic, and there is kind of a business tension there, right? I mean, that's part of kind of what makes the chatbot appealing to use. It keeps people engaged. So it does seem like a difficult problem potentially for OpenAI.
Definitely. And they noted also in the blog post that their aim is not for people to spend more and more time using ChatGPT, but really for them to get helpful answers to the questions that they have. So that tension is something that at least they're aware of, and to what extent they can address it. It's good to see that they're at least putting out measures to help in that area.
Although interestingly, they had sort of corrected for some of that sycophantic behavior with GPT-5, but there was such an outcry when they deprecated the old models that they ended up bringing them back. That seems to be what users want. So it's definitely a complicated question.
Certainly.
All right. Well, now we want to turn to a new feature on the music streaming platform, Spotify. it now has direct messaging. So, Jewel, are you planning to chat up a storm on Spotify now?
I'm not sure if I will chat up a storm, but I actually was kind of excited to see this feature. I have four younger brothers, and they love to send me new songs and playlists and things to check out. So I think it will be kind of fun to be able to chat and give my direct feedback right there in Spotify.
Right. The company said that this is kind of intended to be for that kind of a use, a complement to other ways that people have been sharing music and podcasts, often texting each other. And this kind of keeps that in the app. It's a more seamless, streamlined way. I mean, how social is the Spotify app? What kind of other social components does it have?
It's actually not too social, at least from my experience using it. I think that Spotify has in the past tried to launch social features within the app and hasn't been super successful in doing so. So this is another effort to keep people in the app, to keep people engaged in the app, to help them with sharing and commenting, both on the music side as well as the audio books and podcasts. So I think it's another effort to get people continue to be engaged in Spotify and the app and sort of keep users there for longer.
As long as we're not chatting with the AI DJs, I feel like that's going to be the next logical step. All right, Jewel Burks Solomon at Collab Capital. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And thanks to all of you for watching Marketplace Tech Bytes Week in Review. Daniel Shin produced this episode. I'm Meghan McCarty Carino. This is APM.